Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and today we'll be speaking with a full-time HR manager, writer for Forbes.com, co-owner of Elite Aesthetics Gym with her hubby, and the mama to 7 doggies. How are you doing, Tiffany Jensen?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I'm really excited about this episode.
Me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. And so I always start every episode by asking the question, like, what is the first thing that you think about or something that you do right before you step on stage?
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, ever since I got my pro card, it's actually changed a little bit what I do before I get on stage. First thing I do is take a really, really deep breath. Try to normalize with my breath and just exhale. Release all the tension. I tend to store all this tension in my upper body, which causes me to tense up on stage, causes me to rush my routine. So right when I'm behind those curtains, I take a deep breath, I exhale, and I say to myself, relax. You've done this plenty of times.
I love that. That's so amazing. And honestly, just hearing you describe it like that actually got me feeling like, wow, I really missed the stage right now.
And I tell all my clients the same thing because honestly, that's the most nervous point is that moment before you walk on stage. Being able to control that nervousness, because a lot of times nervousness channels into this flailing energy on stage and arms start flailing everywhere. You start rushing your routine. So the last thing you want to do is take all that practice and throw it out the window, just because your nerves kick in right when you get on stage. So I always tell myself, relax. I kind of just take a deep breath. I let everything relax and I walk on as if I'm practicing in front of my mirror at home.
Yes, that's great advice. I think that's a really great way to just get recentered to you and what you know. So
exactly.
Obviously, the stage, it's an awesome, awesome part of your life, and we're going to talk a lot about you as a competitor, but you're also a really busy woman. And I first want to know, how did your dog family grow to 7? That's so shocking to me.
Well, I had my 2 min pins before me and my husband met. So they're a little bit older. They're about 9 and 10 years old. So I already had them before me and my husband moved in together. And once we moved in together, he wanted a big dog. So, we were talking about what kinds of dogs we want. And we both came to the agreement that we both wanted a husky. So it was probably about 2.5 years ago, we got our first husky. And then about a week after we had him, we realized that my min pins wanted nothing to do with him and that he was going to need a friend to play with. So we went ahead and got a second husky, a female husky, to play with him, so they could grow up together. And then once they turned about 6 months old, we had a friend of ours reach out, and she had a 6-month-old husky. He was living in this little townhouse, and she just couldn't take care of him anymore. Huskies are pack dogs. They need to play. They need to run. So she asked if we would take him until she moves into a larger home. And we said, sure, that's fine. We took him on, and then he kind of became part of the pack. So we were talking to her and we ended up just keeping him. And then a couple months later, same thing happened with a client of ours, had a 4-month-old husky in an apartment, couldn't get rid of him. No one would take him. So we took him in. So that's how we ended up with the 6th dog. So our 4th husky.
Wow.
And then just most recently, I got Oscar, our little dapple dachshund. cutest darn little thing. He's like my indoor dog that he's sitting on my lap right now sleeping. Um,
Oh,
I wanted just a little dog, in a puppy to be able to hang out inside with me. My two min pins, they're old. They like just being in their cage and being left alone. So that's how we ended up with 7 dogs.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've also made a lot of accomplishments in your life outside of being a professional athlete, of course. You are an HR manager and you write for Forbes. You have your bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in business administration and HR management. So you've done a lot. What was the driving factor behind all of that?
Um, so when I graduated from ASU with my psychology degree. I had a lot of friends who were a little bit older than me. So I saw them taking a few years away from school, saying they were going to go get their, higher education, get a graduate degree. And then once they got into the workforce, they didn't end up going back to school. They got too busy with their full-time jobs. And so my tactic was, graduate, have a full-time job set up, but also have graduate school like ready to go right out of graduating from my undergrad. So about a month after graduating from my undergrad, I jumped into my graduate degree and started my first full-time HR job. I wanted to get as much education as I could from the beginning. And because, especially in the HR field, every position I looked at was 3 to 5 years experience or have a higher degree. And I'm like, all right, well, I could try to work my way up over the next 3 to 5 years, or I could jump into this graduate degree, which could potentially help propel my, career development a little bit faster. So went ahead and just jumped into that. Took me about 2 years to go through the MBA and MHRM programs. But honestly, I am so thankful I did, because those friends that I was just talking about are still talking about going back to graduate school.
Wow.
And now it's been about, I don't know, maybe 5 years. So, I'm glad I got that out of the way and I'm able to just like go full force into my career.
That's amazing. That's really powerful. I love that you learned from them and took it a different route and it's benefiting you. And so I'd love to know, like, what kind of writing do you do for Forbes?
So I do HR and leadership. So it's anything from current HR employment laws that might be, just released, or maybe some hot topics recently in, the HR world. One of them that I actually noticed I've been writing quite a bit on, because they send me like Q&As to answer, and then I can also write my own articles.
Mm.
They've really liked the fact that I work remote as an HR manager, and fostering a remote environment, and how to do that appropriately and how to make that work to make employees still feel like they are connected, and that they don't have that, face-to-face disconnect that they normally would have, when they're in an office. So they've actually done a couple interviews with me. They did a video segment on some of the ways that we recognize and reward employees as a distributed team. So once they figured out that I'm 100% remote HR manager, they were jumping on me about that, and they wanted to know, how do you do this? How do you do that? Can you write on this? Can you write on that? Because I think a lot of HR managers are struggling with that. I mean, you see where the world is going. We're on, we're talking over, the computer here, and being able to do that in a work environment and still have that work-life flexibility of working from home. A lot of HR managers struggle with grasping that concept and getting that to work. So I've kind of put out, what I think and what I do, to make that work in the organizations I work for.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'd love if you could send me that, because that sounds really interesting.
Absolutely.
And you're right. Like, the world's definitely been shifting that way. And you also do things outside of this. I know that. So what is your day-to-day life like with the writing and being a professional athlete, as well as you do posing coaching, right? And coaching?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah. So what's your day-to-day life like with all of this going on?
So day to day, obviously my priority is my career. So first thing when I get up, I head to work. I work the normal, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. When I'm at work, I'm focused on just work, just my HR job. Oh, hang on. Sorry. I focus on, just my HR job. I'm just honed in on just that aspect of my life. I think this is where a lot of people can't find that balance because they've got, like you said, I've got all these things going on. It's very easy for me to be at work and start thinking about competing and start worrying about competing when really there's nothing I can do while I'm at work. So, I work my job until 4 p.m. After 4 p.m., I head on over to our gym. If I've got posing clients, I'll pose them. And then afterwards, I'll try to get my workout in. There has been times where it's a little bit, you get into the competition season, like usually around like February, March, and then even kind of like September, and August are probably the busiest for me because there's tons and tons of shows in March and, September and towards the end of the year here. And people are trying to get in their last minute posing. And I'll end up stacking people on until maybe 8 p.m. at night. And then I don't leave time for my own workout. But I always try to put my clients first because I know, when it comes down to it, I can get my workout in eventually. But yeah, then usually I turn around, go home. It's 8, 9 at night, go to sleep and do it all over again. As I receive, my writing questions and stuff from Forbes, I'll sit down at night or early in the morning, try to crank one or two of those out. That way it doesn't, go onto the back burner and, doesn't get forgotten. Trying to keep up with that stuff. I mean, honestly, the use of a calendar is great. I put everything on my calendar. I set so many reminders on my phone that go off, and it's for the silliest thing. Like one that just went off was us to order food from our meal prep company. So, it's just, that's how I keep myself on track, because otherwise, it's very easy for me to get busy throughout the day and forget a lot of these things. So, I try to focus on each, aspect of my life at the time that it's happening. And use of my calendars and reminders and alarms on my phone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I do the same thing. I live by the calendar. It has to be, everything that I'm doing has to be in the calendar. And sometimes I think that could get a little extreme for myself, but I definitely understand how much that is so helpful. It literally sets your day up. It makes you stay on track. And if you block it out, time blocks, with your alarm, you just get it done right there. And you sound like a person who's well, if it's right now, right here, right now, I'm going to do it. So,
yep.
I think that that's a powerful resource and a great input. And there's some people who I don't think function well this way. And there's people who thrive off of this, So obviously, to anybody listening, just do what works best for you. But if you haven't tried it yet, then maybe you should give it a go, right?
Right. And honestly, I've noticed the busier I am, the more, obviously the more productive I am, but the more focused I can be. It kind of sounds silly when, if I'm busier at work when I'm prepping for a show, my preps are actually easier because I'm not overthinking things. I'm not sitting here in front of my computer thinking, oh my gosh, I'm hungry. I really want some pizza right now or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so busy that I don't even think about, what I'm craving. I just eat when my meal alarm goes off, and it makes it so easy for me. So, there's been times where I've told myself, all right, I need to take a step back, stop putting so many things on my plate, and, kind of just kick back for a little bit. But honestly, as soon as I do that, I put another project on my plate. So it's I'm not busy enough. So.
Yeah, you're definitely busy, and it's cool that you like to keep yourself busy. I think that it can keep us from the overthinking, but it also serves as a great tool for us to stay on track and to stay focused. I think that if we have everything spread out or we're not super honed in on it, then how can we get fully focused and go all in with it? And I've found the same thing on preps. Like, I prefer to be busy because then it's that one thing at a time, and it allows me to like address the day or attack the day based on those things. So even like aside from like working, you're doing so much, and a lot of people wonder in regard to competing, like, can you make money with competing? And it seems like most of the time the money is made with the expenses saved, like through sponsorships or the opportunities that come from being an athlete and a competitor. So I'd love if you could just share with us your main sources of income, if you're comfortable with it, and how you created these opportunities for yourself.
Oh, that's so. And you mean this in regards to
competing?
Okay, competing. So I kind of start off with why I started competing. It's, to me, it was almost like a diversion from, I was going out partying a lot on weekends, very unproductive. And, as you can tell, I thrive on productivity. Mm-hmm. So kind of using growing in fitness to be able to focus a little bit more on work. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it actually helped me focus more day to day. It helped me, have a clear mindset going into work. And then, I kind of take my success as a professional, and I also use my success as an athlete, and I kind of combine those. I don't just thrive off of, when I compete that, I get, top 3 or something like that. And that's my one and only success. It's, going into the show, like what were my successes going into the show? And, taking those and building on them, like building on every struggle I've had, even every success I've had, what worked, what didn't work. A lot of people look at what worked or what didn't work, and they don't really look at what did work. And using that to kind of propel myself forward in my, the future with my competitions, and even in my professional life. But I think that, obviously, everyone competes for different reasons. A lot of people have this backstory about, whether they had a struggle with eating or, body image issues. That was never me. It was more so honing in my focus. And, like I said, I used to go out all the time drinking and stuff on weekends, and that was just not productive to me. So once I saw some friends get on stage, and I was like, hey, this looks interesting. Like, I wonder if I could do it. And then obviously, as you can tell, I'm always trying to progress. So once I figured out, hey, I'm going to try this competing thing. I went into my first show. I got 5th place. What can I do to further myself in this sport too? So it's like constantly furthering me as a person, and obviously my physique, because, that's, what the bikini division's all about. But, it's just about like self-progression is what everything that I do stems off of. Something that's going to be valuable to me. Maybe it might not be a valuable thing to someone else, but, it's something of value to me, whether it's, getting through, a prep, and getting myself to that national stage. And then, okay, maybe that didn't go so well when I went to nationals the first couple times. It's taking that and not making it a heartbreak. It's making it like, okay, this is just another struggle that I can learn from that's going to make me getting my pro card even that much better. Same with going into the pro division, same thing, all right, what can I do to, one, be a better role model as a pro bikini competitor, but be a better role model to myself as well. So, for me, it's all about self-progression, and it's, finding some sort of fulfillment out of what I'm doing every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obvious that that's how you are. I mean, you You definitely have such a positive mindset. Ever since I've been following you, I've always noticed that you take every struggle or every loss, if you want to call it that, and turn it into something better and you grow with it. So when you reflect on the shows that you have competed in, what's some of the feedback that you've received from the judges, and how did you feel about that, or how did that help you then moving forward so that you could expand on those?
So at regional shows, a lot of times my feedback was like a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter in the glutes, or, a little bit just tighter all around. I've also been told, everyone wants to work on your glutes, right? Everyone wants to have nice round glutes. So we tend to really focus on that and neglect the upper body portion. Now, I'm pretty petite to begin with. So once I started building my lower body, I didn't really focus as much on my upper body. So then when I went to cut down, and I noticed this as soon as, I cut down, that my upper body is not as muscular, not as full as my lower body was. So after, I would get that, hey, bring in the glute hammy tie-ins a little bit tighter. And then it was, all right, now you need a little bit more size up top. So then it was working on that. So I kind of take one thing at a time. There was a period of time after I got my pro card, I think it was like 3 shows in a row. I kept getting told, don't change a thing. I think that is the hardest feedback to get, because as silly as it sounds, every competitor wants to hear don't change a thing. But, when you're in 4th place or 10th place or 8th place or whatever, and you get told don't change a thing, you're like, all right, well, that doesn't really help me, in terms of how do I progress to, a higher placing. So, there was a couple shows where it was don't change a thing. And then, and I didn't, I always listen to feedback, especially if I plan on being in front of that same judge again. I really want to make sure that, if they tell me, something, that I make that change, because I have seen in the past where I was told, don't change a thing, and I didn't, and I did even better at the next show. That was actually my feedback after I got 3rd place at a regional show 2 weeks before I got my pro card. I got 3rd place, and I got told don't change a thing. And I was like, what the heck? Like, should I even do nationals? Because I got told don't change a thing, but I still ended up in 3rd place. Like, that doesn't, that doesn't seem like it would make any sense to spend the money to go out to Chicago and compete if, 2 weeks before that I was in front of that head judge and I got 3rd. So, I just took it for what it is, didn't change a thing. And obviously it worked out in my favor. I ended up with the overall at junior nationals in 2017. And then going into the pro level, the feedback is significantly different than it was as an amateur competitor. It's a little bit more eye-opening as to how much more muscle and shape I need to develop, and fullness. As we all, most of us know, if people have been in front of, the Olympia head judge, she prefers fullness over conditioning. I was always good at coming in really conditioned, but I was too afraid to fill out enough to be full. It was like that carbing up process where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spill over. And it was kind of getting past that fear, because I kept getting told you need to be fuller. And sometimes, I get told to, bring up my upper body a little bit, and that doesn't necessarily mean put on more muscle. It just means fill out a little bit more. So there was a couple shows where I was like, you know what, let me set my fears aside of spilling over and let me just eat going into the show. And I did that, and I came in my fullest. I looked my absolute best. And that's when I learned, all right, it's not about coming in as lean as possible. It's about, having this fuller look. And that doesn't necessarily mean, taking a year off season and building up my upper body. It also means, eat to fill out the right places. So once again, the feedback has changed over time as I've progressed. But I do like to, get feedback from the same judges, because for me, it's been very consistent. Sometimes, you know, when I'm in front of one judge, like there's some judges that really like this hard, grainy, lean look. And I tend to avoid those shows because I don't like that look, nor is that really a goal of mine to look like that. You know, some people love that look, and that's totally fine. You know, that's their own subjective preference. But for me, you know, I do like a little bit more, you know, softer, fuller look. And now that I know how to achieve that without being too afraid to carve up, I'm actually interested to see when I go to do my next show in 2019, what my feedback will be, because I'm going to try to come in fuller, a little bit more shapely, and not so like lean and stringy.
Wow. That's really interesting about your point too, about picking shows based on like maybe where the judges will be. So how do you decide what pro shows you're going to compete in, and how do you like have that knowledge or just know those things?
So, just based off of experience of some other shows that I've been to, last year, you know, it was my first year as a pro. I was kind of just testing out the waters. And, you know, I just hit up random shows, ones that were, you know, in California. You know, those were the main ones I hit up because that's closest to me because I'm in Arizona. So, and then obviously I did some of the Arizona shows. There was only, after I turned pro, there was only one show here in Arizona that did pro bikini, but I wanted to not travel too far, especially my first year as a pro, because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen, how well I was going to do. So I just picked a few shows in California and went and did those. You know, I noticed that, you know, there are certain competitors that flock to, you know, a certain promoter, you know, in different areas of the United States. And I think it's probably the same reason why I do it, is because they know the judges that prefer their look, which is a great strategy. But, you know, obviously the subjectivity of the sport, you know, people go in thinking every show is going to be the same and the judges will be the same. And that's not necessarily true. But then it also comes down to, like last year I went and did the Sacramento Pro and there was like 34 competitors.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure they made an announcement that at the time it was one of the biggest bikini pro shows. When I was an amateur, I noticed a lot of the shows were around 15 to 20 competitors maybe. And because of the size of the shows, I realized the only way I'm going to get noticed is if the judges recognize me. And sometimes that's the way that, you know, that's why people go and do regional shows right before a national show in front of the same judges, because it's so hard to get yourself picked, you know, out of, you know, 35 to 40, you know, beautiful bikini women. And how do you stand out? It's difficult. You stand out by, I mean, basic, you know, human reaction is, hey, I've seen that face before. They're going to pay a little bit more attention to you. You know, or if you've placed before in front of that judge, you know, they already, you know, deep down know, okay, like that's one of the top physiques I've picked before. So, you know, that may get you first or second call outs. You know, I went and did another show that was 42 pros last year.
Wow.
It was the Border Clash in South Carolina. And I actually didn't even get called out at all. So this is the perfect example of how you can get lost in the crowd. I hadn't competed since like November of that year. So it had been, you know, 5 months or so since I competed. So I wasn't as recognizable as a lot of the other women up there, and they didn't call out my number. And then there was this long pause after all the call outs, and finally they called out my number and just put me dead center. And I'm standing out there for a couple seconds alone thinking, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, what the heck?
Then they brought second call outs back out with me. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, hey, maybe I might crack top 10 after all. The judge told me backstage that I was hidden behind a bunch of girls, you know, in the lineup, because I think we were like 3 lines deep on each side of the stage.
Wow.
And she's like, you know what? There's so many girls up there. I literally forgot your number. So, you know, once again, that's one of those things where, like, if you're not actively competing and getting in front of the same judges, it's very hard to stand out. So, and that's what makes me nervous going into this next year because, I have competed since July. I probably won't compete until March or April of next year. So, it's kind of like starting all over again, which once again makes me nervous. But so, same plan for this year. I'm going to hit up some shows that are closer to Arizona. Just because, we're moving our gym home and everything, and we spent a bunch of money, revamping our gym. So we're going to try to take it easy on, traveling across the world, to compete and try to do some shows that either we can drive to or, that might be a quick flight. So sometimes it comes down to, what's the closest show to here, what's the cheapest to go to. And sometimes it's, what's one of the bigger shows that I've had in mind that I've always wanted to do. Perfect example, I've never been to Canada, and I decided to do the Vancouver Pro last year. I was like, heck, let's just go to Vancouver. I don't care how I do. Like, I just want to compete in Canada. I've never competed out of the country before, so let's just do this. So, that's how that one got thrown into the mix. So, sometimes it's just like shows I've followed over a while, or there's a certain promoter, or I see how the show runs, or, sometimes like some people flock to shows because they've got a really cool stage or they've got a big audience. It's enthralling to stand up there and, have a huge crowd in front of you and, know that you're on a, extremely prestigious pro stage.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be really exciting, and it can fuel that passion even further, especially if you are standing back there and you're like fired up by that. And you mentioned like you're a little nervous about going into this next show because it's been since July, and I was having similar thoughts because I competed so many times last year. Well, I don't know if this would be so many times to a lot of people like in the pro leagues now, especially with you guys having to compete a lot more, it seems. But I competed 5 times in a year, and it was pretty close together. So I felt like I could literally see, and I could still see the judge's face in my mind. Like, I feel like it was so easy at that point to feel comfortable up there. And now I'm like, okay, like this is a longer off season for me. And I know that this is also the first off season that you've had that's longer than 6 weeks, right?
Yeah. This is definitely the longest.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's much needed. We've had a lot of life events happen over the last couple of months. So, I mean, it couldn't be better timing for me to be taking a little bit of an off season. But yeah, I mean, I used to call like 6 to 8 weeks an off season, but that's really not an off season. To me, that's more of like a maintenance period before going back into a prep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I had like a 5-week, like I had like mini breaks, and I was like, okay, there's not much that's happening, because you can't like focus on building so much that you put on too much fat, where then you're like, okay, now it's already time to tune up. So how's your mentality been different when you step into the gym now versus when you're on prep, if it's different at all?
It's a little bit different. Right now I'm trying to focus on targeting the right areas and getting activation in all the areas that I know usually shut off, and maximizing my energy in the gym. Because as we all know, when we're prepping, energy is low. We struggle to really pick ourselves up and have this, 100% motivation every day. I'm trying to really utilize the carbs and the reverse dieting to maximize my workouts. I'm also on a maintenance schedule with, some of our active release therapists, so that I can keep my body, in good shape, and in a healthy way. Because I've had, oh my gosh, knee problems, hip problems, not necessarily surgeries or anything, but stuff that just has prevented me from developing certain areas of my body. And when I'm in prep, I am just in go mode. I have a tendency to put my workouts before, my stretching and my maintenance. And I'm trying to do all the maintenance now and loosen things up, to be able to get back into prep and not have to worry so much about, oh my gosh, like my delts aren't activating because my upper body is too tight, or like my QL is tightened up, so it's shutting off part of my glutes, and then going back and having to, work those bad areas out and spending time on that. I'm trying to do that and then basically relearn my exercises to be able to activate like at maximum potential, not just go in, do a squat and be like, yeah, I felt it in my butt, but my quads took over, just taking it back down to even just the bare minimum weight, back down to body weight on some exercises, and then working my way up. A lot of people jump right into, oh, it's off season, let's lift heavy because we're going to build. Yes, but work into it because, going into a show, I'm pretty high rep, low weight. So jumping right into, trying to lift heavy again is going to cause injury. So it's all about maintenance right now for me. So my mindset is maintenance, activation, and kind of slowing my workouts down so that I'm not rushing through them. And I'm focusing more on like, okay, where am I actually feeling this at? Where, if I'm doing a lat pull down, where in my hands am I actually pulling down from? Am I, using my forearms a little bit more? Am I using my shoulders too much? Am I actually using my lats to pull this down? Or am I hoisting the rest of my body to, yank it down? So it's kind of going back because it's easy to lose that kind of focus. Because it's not, a lot of people don't think it's fun. It's not fun to sit there and, take your time doing your workout. People want to, hit a hard workout. They want to be sore. They want to sweat. And sometimes these workouts don't really entail that. So.
Right. Especially because you're being so in tune and you're being so focused that sometimes when you don't activate it, or when you don't feel what you're looking for, or when you don't have that mind muscle connection that you needed for sets 1, 2, and 3, okay, let's go back. Let's do this again. Let's make sure I'm actually feeling it and activating it. I feel like it's an investment.
Right. Exactly.
It's like, you don't want to just like, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm in the gym and I'm kind of lifting, but I did my off season, I gave it my all, but it's like, did you really give it your all? Like, can you leave the gym knowing that you activated the muscles that you need to work on, knowing that like you felt it, like you really gave it your all? Otherwise it's like you leave and you can be like, I did a workout today, or you can be like, I really worked it today,
Right. Yeah. And giving it your all doesn't always mean like, lifting as heavy as you can, or exerting all your energy. Sometimes it's giving all your patience into relearning these exercises. Sometimes our egos like to take over in the gym and we're like, oh, I know how to do lat pull downs. I can't tell you how many times my husband has walked over to me and he's like, start pulling from your pinkies on lat pull downs. And I start doing that and I have like this aha moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm hitting them targeting them so much better by using my pinkies. Like, it's such a simple fix, but it's something I was doing wrong for such a long time because my gym ego, wouldn't let me put the weight back down to, 10, 20 pounds. Instead, I'm over here, trying to, use 50, 60, 70 pounds on a lat pull down. And I'm really not maximizing my workout and I'm not benefiting from it in the way that I would want to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, the muscle that you actually want to work, is it doing most of the work? And if the answer is no, it's like, yeah, drop the weight down, like let go of the ego. And I know like we all face it because sometimes we want that ego boost. We want to feel like good about what we're doing, but it's like we will feel so much better when we see the results later on. It's such an investment of time, of energy, and real effort. And on the topic of off season, you actually made a post recently about how you feel very comfortable in your off season body and you haven't been struggling at all with self-love that's needed for this. And this is something that I've been actually working with competitors on, is the post-show blues, the post-show funk, right? Getting out of that, but you don't struggle with it. So what would you say contributes most to your comfortability with it?
Knowing that competing is not my entire life. So, and I'm sure other people can relate to this. Me and my husband, when I am in prep, we walk into Costco and I get 5 different comments about protein or egg whites. And it's because it's very obvious that, you know, I work out, I'm obviously a lot leaner. You can see my, you know, my muscle and everything. When I'm not in prep, I mean, I get a little bit softer. I don't look as muscular because I've got a little bit of a layer of a fat on top of it. So it's not as, doesn't really draw as much attention. And I actually prefer that. I call it, you know, my day-to-day, you know, my normal day, like physique. I always say, you know, the lean, hard physique is great for on stage, but you have to understand, like, you can't look like that all the time. I know that's been said millions and millions of times, but I think people don't actually accept that, and accept that it's unhealthy to try to keep and maintain that level of leanness. So honestly, I mean, you know, when I'm not prepping, I know that, you know, I can focus on other things, and, you know, I can be a little bit more lackadaisical with my diet, and I enjoy that. I enjoy, you know, being like, all right, you know, I want to go grab Starbucks this morning, not have to be like, no, don't go there. You know, don't drive to Starbucks. Like, you know, just stay home, drink your water. You know, I don't like putting that kind of pressure on myself. So when that pressure is released, I enjoy it. And I once again, I just accepted that I can't maintain, you know, a stage ready body, and that's totally fine. I mean, I don't think anyone can. So, you know, post show, I always tell people, like, have a plan, not necessarily like, you know, a plan in terms of when you're competing again, but have a plan as to, like, you know, hey, are you going to reverse diet for 6 weeks? Are you going to take a couple weeks off and just give yourself a break? But then also know what comes with that. You know, if you decide, like, hey, I'm going to, you know, take a few weeks off from the gym just to clear your mind and hit the reset button, just know that, you know, your body's not going to stay the way that it currently is if you do that. And once again, it's just acceptance. And honestly, like, you know, people are so afraid of being judged. Like, oh, I look like this on stage, and, you know, I don't look like this in person 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later. You know, it kind of goes back to just, the only thing that matters is how you feel about yourself. And, you know, if someone doesn't have that self-love for themselves, I mean, honestly, I tell people you shouldn't compete if you don't have that to begin with. If you don't have that to begin with before you start prepping, and if you're prepping because you dislike your body, you're going to have post-show blues. It's not, you know, we all know that competing is pretty extreme. So it's difficult to, I mean, it's hard to tell people don't compete because, you know, they want to get in the best shape of their life and everything. But it's not, you know, getting a great body isn't just a 12-week prep and then, you know, doing whatever you want afterwards. It's a lifestyle change. You know, I'm usually on like a maintenance diet. You know, I reverse diet for a little bit, and then, you know, I'm on a maintenance diet, and it's understanding that, you know, if I want to continue, especially if I want to continue competing, you know, I've got to stay on top of my nutrition. But, you know, once again, people just tend to compete for the wrong reasons. So then that's what I think causes this aftermath, this negative aftermath, because people lose sight of who they were before they started competing.
Yeah, actually, I would totally agree with you on that one. I think that I know personally when I did my very, very, very first show in 2015, like, I wasn't in the right mental space, like relationship with myself or with food to actually do that. So when I went into it and I came out of it, I was like, I was like, I hate this sport. Like, it's terrible. I had a horrible rebound, and I blamed everything on, like, the sport, you know, and it's like, in reality, like, I love the sport. I love the lifestyle, but I didn't love myself. I didn't love the relationship that I had with food. I was super judgmental. I didn't have acceptance. So I think that all your points here are, like, spot on. And I can say, like, those were some of the biggest lessons that I learned even in my own journey as well. And I think it's awesome that you are a light in the competition world of, like, you don't have to feel this way. Like, make sure that you are aligned with the reason why you're doing it. And for you, you are someone who understands that and commits to that. And I love that you accept it. And I think that that is, like, the biggest thing that we can do is, like, I constantly need the reminders. It's like, okay, whatever you're doing, it may be different than what you're used to, or it may not be what other people are doing. But if you can accept it and accept what comes with it and accept how it's going to make you feel and be okay with it, that's all that matters, because then you won't have this disconnect with the identity or disconnect with the person that then causes the guilt or the shame to come up, right?
Exactly.
And with your background in psychology, I'm sure that you probably have different methods or tools or things that you've learned over time that have either subconsciously been conditioned into you or things that you can have more readily available to you. How do you use that in your day-to-day life or even your competition life?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I use is just self-awareness. Being aware of how I'm acting. Cause I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've heard of plenty of competitors who've told me stories about how they get super hangry or they've got super emotional during a prep. And one girl actually was telling me about how she lost her job because of it.
Wow.
And it's because, you're not in the right mindset. You're so focused on competing that you're not really aware of how you're acting and maybe how you're acting towards other people. So I try to always like keep myself in check. If I find myself getting hangry or, my emotions are up and down, I identify with that and I say, this is only happening because I'm, low carb, I'm drained of energy. It's once again, just being so self-aware of everything you're doing, even when it comes to like your ego and when you're stepping off stage. It's easy to quickly react to like a negative placement or a negative call out. Let's say you get last call outs, and I've seen pros storm off stage and throw stuff in their duffel bags and storm out of the dressing room. And then they go onto social media and they're like, oh, it's, I still love, the way I placed or whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, yes, it is disappointing, but once again, even being self-aware that minute that you walk off stage, even when you get first call outs, walking off stage and that there's girls backstage who are upset, that they didn't get first call out. So not getting off stage and, boasting and bragging and all this stuff. And, I always try to make a point to go around to people and, give them a hug, compliment them, because everyone at that stage, looks absolutely amazing. We know sometimes it just comes down to, luck of the draw, because there's so many amazing competitors up there. So, it's just the self-awareness aspect. And like, obviously it's a very selfish sport. So, remembering that there are other people in your life besides yourself. I think that's where a lot of people have trouble with relationships, with competing, because it's a very, very self-centered sport. But, once again, yes, when you're in prep, you kind of have to be fully focused on yourself, but it doesn't always have to be like that when you're out of prep. Once again, being self-aware and thinking like, all right, the world does not revolve around me. There's plenty of other people in the world, and I'm just one other person.
Yes, absolutely. And you and your husband work together closely a lot too. And you own a gym together. And I know that you guys are like moving gyms. So what inspired you guys to open up a gym? And I mean, to the point of what you were just talking about, like you guys have so many like dog children and you've been through so much. So like, how do you maintain that? And like, what inspired you guys to open up the gym and pursue all of this together?
So my husband is actually, a personal trainer and competition prep coach to begin with. So as soon as him and I started dating, I kept telling him, why don't you just have your own facility? And he kept saying like, where the heck do I even start with that? And funny thing, actually, my capstone project for my master's degree was about opening up my own gym. I had no actual plans of ever doing that in the future. When I wrote that, it just was something that was, I was working out a lot. I was actually working out at a CrossFit gym every day. So I did it on opening a CrossFit gym. So I was like, hey, let's put together a business plan let's open up our own facility. And he's like, where do we even start with that? I'm like, I've already got one written up.
No
So
problem.
we just took that, and he was just like, what the heck? Like, I don't remember how many pages it was, but it's just funny how the stars align that way. And so from there, we opened up our facility, and we said that our 10-year plan was to consolidate the gym in the house, because obviously it's like paying 2 mortgages at this point. And then the opportunity to move into this house we're in now came up, and it's got the exact same size facility out back that our gym is now. So as of tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., it's being moved home, and our 10-year plan is turned into a 2-year plan.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's powerful how much and how quickly we can manifest things that we really, really want.
Oh, absolutely.
That is really, really cool that you guys were able to accomplish that together, and that you guys are already on your way to making that happen. So, where are you guys currently located, and is this something that's open to the public?
So, currently we're located in Tempe. We are moving it to Gilbert, where we live here. It is actually just private training, so we don't offer, memberships or anything like that. Everything is just one-on-one personal training. So we've got a few trainers who train out of our gym, but everything is by appointment only. We do group training. We're going to try to kickstart our boot camps again on Saturday mornings, but it's mostly one-on-one training and competition prep.
That's awesome. That sounds really, really cool. And I'd love for you to let everyone know, to anybody listening, I'm sure if they reach out to you, they'd be able to maybe have an opportunity to come train there, work with you guys. So can you let them know what the website for your gym is?
Yes. The website is www.elitegymaz.com.
Awesome. And it's just been an absolute blast and pleasure to have you on the show, and you've shared so much value, and I'm really, really excited. I'm actually going to try to get this out today, but some of the things that I love that you touched on, a lot of it was about acceptance and coming to terms with like life and lifestyle and competing in general and doing it for the right reasons and having organization in your life. And you are a clear example of someone who has achieved so much on all aspects of life. And I think that is because you are so present in the moment of what you're focused on right then and there. You've committed to that. And that's such a powerful lesson that I'm taking away from this. And I'd love if you could just give one piece of advice to kind of wrap this up for the people who are looking to compete or who are currently competing and wanting to go pro.
So one piece of advice is take yourself seriously, but not too seriously. I know that sounds silly, but be serious with your goals and getting there, but don't be so serious about the results. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it's just a competition. It's, I know some people get mad when I say it's just a bikini competition. It's not your whole life is ruined. It's just a placing. So at the end of the day, like I say, take yourself seriously in your preps, but don't take yourself so seriously to where you don't enjoy it.
I'm writing it down. I'm like, okay, I got to take that note. That's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that this whole entire episode has been super powerful, and I'd love for everybody, not just me, but everybody to thank you and let you know exactly what they took away from it, because there are so many golden nuggets. So can you let everybody know where they can connect with you, maybe like Instagram or any other platforms or things that you like to use?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram tag is Tiffany Jensen, IFBB Pro. You can also reach out to me through our contact tab through our website, elitegymaz.com. So if anyone's looking for posing advice, I do Skype posing. I also do in-person posing. You can hit the contact tab on that, and you can contact me directly.
That's amazing. Thank you so, so much. And to everybody listening, I'm going to put all of that information, those links, her Instagram, everything into the show notes. So make sure you go to www.celestial.fit/podcast to get all of that. And make sure you go and let her know how much you loved the episode and all the takeaways you had. Tag us in your stories on Instagram. Just let us know what you loved. And with all of that being said, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love speaking about this stuff, so thank you for putting this out there.
Of course, you're so amazing. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, review, let us know what you think, and I look forward to